स्वयं लिख्यते कथम् हृदय कुहर मध्ये केवलं मात्रम् यहमहमिति साक्षात् आत्मरूपेण भाति हृदि विषमनसा स्वं चिन्वता मज्जता अनचलनरोधा आत्मनिष्ठो भवत्वम् देहं मृण्मयवत् जडात्मकम् अहं बुद्धिर्न कस्यास्त्यतो नाहं तत्तद्भावशुद्धिसमये सिद्धात्मसद्भाव कोऽहं भावितः कुतो वदभिः दृष्टात्मनिष्ठात्मा सोऽहं स्फूर्तितया अरुणाचल शिवः कूर्मो विभाति स्वयम् सोऽहं स्फूर्तितया अरुणाचल शिवः कूर्मो विभाति स्वयम् Namo Ramana. With Bhagavan's immense grace, we have been meditating on the verses of Anma bodham, the Tamil translation of Atma bodha. The translation is by Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi. We have been meditating on the verses of the absorption of the non-self into the self and the shining of the self all by itself, or the process of dissolution of the non-self. The portion preceding being that of the nididhyasana, the nivritti of the anatma, and the holding of atma bhava. So let's go back. We are in verse 45, but let's go back to this beginning of this segment and briefly look at the verses we have touched and then come to verse 45. 45, 46, 47 would come to the completion of this segment. we saw it could be seen as the running commentary of the Jnana Prapti. The Jnana Prapti itself is questioned as to, in the 44th verse we saw that it is not, it is Satatam Prapti. This Jnanam is Satatam Prapti, like the Kanta Abharanam. But then let's briefly look at the running commentary from the beginning. Arivan Arivod Aripaduva Vedam Uruparamanma vil Urade Arivinbu Uruvai Undrai Ahduru Padanal Tan Uruvale Tanulirum Undrai Uruvadanal Tan Uruvale Tanulirum, or that in the beginning of this running commentary as to how the Ajnana goes and the ever-present Jnana rises and shines. The Ajnana can be, in one of the ways, can be looked at as the triad of the knower, knowing, known. And Acharya begins by saying that once the Nididhyasana is held, and in verse 38, the Acharya has said that all that is seen is absorbed in the Atma by the Pravilapya Drishti. Pravilapya Drishti is to see that all that is made of consciousness. Whatever we are seeing is made of consciousness. Manomayam tad bhuvanam vadama. All the senses and the sensory objects are made of consciousness. All the thoughts which are underlying the senses and the sensory world, they are surely made of consciousness. And to reduce all those names and forms into the root of consciousness was what was suggested as the Nididhyasana. In that, what happens? In that, Arivan, Arivod, Aripaduva, Bedam, Urade, that will vanish. The knower, knowing, known division. Obviously, the knowing and known being non-self, they have to be absorbed in the self, in the Ekatma Bhava. And how does that Ekatma shine? The Ekatma shines unlike the Arivu and Aripaduva Purul, unlike the knowing and the known object, which are shining by a light apart from them. The Arivan is self-luminous. The Arivan, the one, the knower, when to the exclusion of all known and absorption of all known, the Atma is held. Then Arivu Inburuvai Ondrai. There is only the Atma which shines by its own luminosity, self-luminously. That was the beginning of the verses. Anma Yenama Araniyil Ividam Anma Dhyanam Ahamadanam Tanmuyendru Santadam Sedalam Sarjanati Madamai Indanam Ellam Erikume. What happens when the Ekatma is held like this? To the complete removal of the knower, knowing, known triad. And all the sensory objects are now absorbed in the Ekatma, and the Ekatma is only held. This is like in those early years, the Sanatana years, where the Homa would be lit by an Agni that is not the Agni used for cooking cooking of food in the kitchen. And they used to have this aranikattai, where two logs of wood, two pieces of wood are so arranged that there is a central curvature, which when both the woods are put together, that curvature arises. In the curvature, there is another wood which is put, and that wood log which is put in that curvature is churned so that its edges touch the edges of that curvature, and sparks are generated, and that spark is taken to light the homa. What does that do? It burns all the vastus, all the objects that are kept for offering in the homa. So what are the objects that we are offering in the homa? All our proclivities, all our vasanas towards the knowing and towards the known that we are going to offer. And the Agni generated by holding of Ekatma Bhava, it burns all this Ajnana. The Ajnana that we are this Panchakoshas, that we are this Anatma, that ignorance is burnt by the Agni generated by the Nididhyasana, and that is what is mentioned in verse number 42. That if Santatam, if you constantly you do that sadhana, then like the fire generated in that aranikattai, that fire of the tapas will burn all the proclivities towards the non-self. The 43rd verse takes the light of tapas away from the individual to the supreme. Now, though the individual is doing the sadhana, we should not forget that the supreme is the adhara which is ever present. The supreme is the very nature of the so-called non-present sadhaka. Therefore, this verse shifts gear, shifts to from the personal sadhana of the sadhaka, the Arunan Udayam. The Arunan is obviously the lighting up the arrival of the Supreme. In tradition, in mystical traditions, it is said, if the Jiva does the sadhana of dropping its own shells, then the Ishvara will do the sadhana or will do the grace of removing his own shells and reveal the Supreme from within. But our sadhana may be only to remove our ignorance, but the truth is also simultaneously taking steps. And what happens when that truth starts appearing in our horizon? In the horizon, when it starts, that is what is there in verse 43. Verse 41 was Arivan, Arivod, Aripoduva, Vedam, that is removed in the sadhana. 42 was that in this churning, in that aranikattai, the fire, what happens is that all our ajnana, all our ignorance, the individual's ignorance is burned. The upadhi attachment is burned. But then what happens is that when the search for truth arises, then the truth rises and shines, and that is what is there in verse 43. Arunanale al agaludal pon mun maruvarivalam madamai idiyave pungumanma paripuranamahave pungum adittanai po. We saw that the rising of the sun is very beautifully split as the arrival of dawn and then the arrival of the Surya. The arrival of the dawn is that early morning arrival of sun's rays. The sun has not risen yet, but when we continuously do the churning, the Supreme is also coming towards it, and at a galloping pace it is coming towards us, and it's near coming in the horizon. Even it has not yet appeared, but the rays of its light, it removes all the darkness in the horizon. And When all the darkness is removed, what happens next? It is now the jiva is not doing anything. The Parama is the only doer, and it has now all the doings of the jiva is gone. That I did all this sadhana. It doesn't remember anything now. There is no jiva to remember. It is only totally part and parcel of that Arunodayam. In that Arunodayam, all the sadhana is washed off. Only that light is there. There is no specks of darkness to see. Arunanale al agaludal pon mun maruvu arivalam madamai iriyave Anma paripuranamahave Pungumadittanai pol. All ignorance, all maya is removed as the Suryodayam is now there. The Arunodayam has removed the ignorance, and the Suryodayam, now the self is rising and shining. The self alone is there, the Spurana alone is there. The Jiva Bhava is nowhere to be seen. That is what is there in 43. Then 44 is where we had to quickly turn off. So we will see 44 in a bit more of detail. Anma eppodume adeindulade aanalum taan madamayal adayadai amarum ஆன்மடிய எய்தப் பெற்றால் போல் இலங்கும் தன் கண்டவழி எய்தப் பெற்றால் போலவே. That is, ஆன்மா எப்போதும் அடைந்துள்ளதே ஆனாலும் தான் மடமையால் அடையாதாய் அமரு மால் மடிய எய்தப் பெற்றால் போல் இலகு தன் கண்டவடி எய்தப் பெற்றால் போலவே. What is the experience once the Suryodayam is there? The experience is that the Anma, this Suryan, is ever present there. But because of our ignorance, we were not able to realize. Bhagavan says, what happens at the end of sadhana, in one of the talks he says, what happens at the end of sadhana? Karna was ever Kunti Putra. The 10th man was always the 10th man. Rama was always Vishnu. That is how he ends the talk. During the explanation, Bhagavan describes the journey as very tough, long, prolonged, slow, lot of patience required. All that is told. At the end of that paragraph of sadhana, Bhagavan says, at the end of all this, what happens? At the end of all this, Karnan discovers that he was ever Kunti Putra. Once Swami Krishna reveals to him, and he understands, and he truly realizes that he is Kunti Putra. Does he realize that he has become Kunti Putra then? He was ever Kunti Putra, isn't it? That is the realization he has. When the 10 men, they were fording the river. This is a very popular story that we have. But then it has deeper connotations. For instance, the 10 fools, as they are called, they cross over the flooded river, and when they check, they count everybody else but not themselves. Therefore, each of them finds only 9. The not finding the oneself, that root ignorance, that will still be there when you have eliminated all the objects, says Bhagavan. When many come to him and say that we have come to the no object state, but there is a dark blankness. There is a dark blankness which we are facing. Sometimes I am afraid of that dark blankness, says Chadwick. And Bhagavan says, what if dark blankness is there? Were you not there? Were you not there to see the blankness? Why are you afraid of the object? You are ever present. So continue your inquiry as to who is seeing the dark blankness. Then you will get parichaya with the ever-present Atma. Is that Atma of Chadwick? It is not Atma of Chadwick. It is the Atma. But we are taking Chadwick's name because he, on our behalf, brings up that darkness, that self-forgetfulness. It appears as though right through the journey, the self-forgetfulness is also there. But then we should not forget that behind that is also unreal. Behind that, the self-luminous self is always present. So the 10th man is what is real, not even the forgetfulness of the 10th man. Now, how can we relate to that? That is, how do we realize that we are forgetfulness is also there. We have forgotten to count ourselves. Right through our Jiva Bhava, we have forgotten to count ourselves. What does that mean? Let us see. And is that true? Or is the self-luminous self the truth? Let us just explore based on this verse. Because the verse says, Anma eppodume adayendulade ayidum. Says that Karna is ever Karna, Vishnu is ever, Rama is ever Vishnu, the 10th man is ever the 10th man. But we have discovered that there is long period of time when Karna did not know. So his self-forgetfulness was underlying his feeling that he was so-and-so's son and he is being disrespected. See, even if others disrespect us, if we know our self-worth, will we value that disrespect? We will not value the disrespect. The disrespect hits us, hurts us because we don't know who we are. That's why it hurts us. And Karna is depicted as a hurt person because that self-forgetfulness is there. Who he is? What is that self-forgetfulness for each of us in the Jiva Bhava? Is Bhagavan beautifully says that in the first verse of Ulladu Narpadu, Bhagavan says, Ulladala Ulla Unarvu Ulladu. Ulladala Ulla Unarvu Ulladu. That is, you have this feeling of that you exist. I have brought it directly to you exist because, see, there is in the description of that one verse, Ulladala Ulla Unarvu Ulladu, it appears as though Lakshman Sharma ji has taken the route of taking the world's existence, and Sadhuvam Swamigal and Kanakamal, they have taken the route of existence of each of us. They take it like that. Ulla Unarvu, don't you feel that you exist? Now, don't you feel that you exist? Every one of us will say, we do exist. Now, let's not go into the nitty-gritties of that verse. Let us say that even if the Sadvastu is, the Ulla Purul is permeating the individual as well as the world, the individual only has to see, isn't it? The individual has to see the Sadvastu. So obviously, though the Sadvastu is permeating the world and himself, unless he sees the one that is permeating himself, he will never be able to see the Sadvastu that is permeating the world. That's why Bhagavan says, see the God within, then God will be felt all around. Quickly coming back to this verse, what is that forgetfulness we have right through our so-called journey? Is very clear to us now. See, Bhagavan is bringing back in open hands and giving it to us that what is the forgetfulness we have? You know your existence directly without the help of the body, without the help of the breath. Even if you hold the breath, your existence is not taken away, isn't it? We clearly know our existence. And Bhagavan says that for knowing that existence, the existence itself is the Sakshi. For that Ulla Unarvu, that the Ulla Unarvu we have, For that, the existence itself is this, nobody is the Sakshi. If I may so say, even Ishvara cannot take it away from us. Now that is the way it is designed. The Sat, because Ishvara, Isha Jivayor, Veshadi Vida, Sat Swabhavato Vastu Kevalam. In the Sat Swabhava, in the nature of existence, both Ishvara and Jiva are one and the same. Where is the difference? Only in the Upadhi. Great Upadhi, small Upadhi. But in existence, both are the same. Sat Swabhavato Vastu Kevalam. That is what we are forgetting. By going with the objects revealed by the Panchakoshas, by the physical, the Annamaya Kosha, objects are revealed, this sensory world. Pranamaya Kosha, objects are revealed, for instance, let's say some emotions. Manomaya Kosha, some other types of thoughts, I would say database thoughts. Some scriptures say that is where the emotions lie. Then the intellect, the abstract thoughts, the thoughts about good and bad, thoughts about cause and effect, all that, let us say, lies in the intellect. Then of course the individual, the I thought is there. These are all the anatma vastus, the panchakoshas, with which forgetting tannai marand tanuve tanayadni, forgetting that we have direct experience of, we have direct ulla unarvu, that we exist, we forget that. So what is the forgetfulness? We are all, when we say those 10 people were fools, we will be smiling away. But then it is referring to each one of us, that we have like that, or we have been like that, that we have always forgotten there is something we have a direct experience of, we live that, we don't value it. The Chintamani is directly there. But then what the anatma vastus we have identified with, the Annamaya Kosha, Pranamaya Kosha, are all anatma. Nanalla Ainkosha Kshetram Idilvala Nanenam Manama Dhanya Ulande. The Panchakoshas is a Kshetra which is all not the self. And with that we have identified, forgetting the simple but direct experience that I exist. And Bhagavan says, let go of those upadhis and hold the I exist. This is the fragrance of the self. And do not leave till the spurana is attained. So, is that spurana, is it appearing because of our sadhana? Is the question in the 44th verse. Did Karna become Kunti Putra? No, Bhagavan says, Karna is ever Kunti Putra. We are ever the Atma only. Though we may not know, Anma எப்போதுமே அடைந்துள்ளது. It is ever attained. It is not something we have to attain. Only the ignorance has to be removed. Just because you did not know, just because you did not know the fact of the will that your unknown friend has left Varta, so valuable, whatever the value, now that Atma is known, I cannot refer to anything as valuable. But suppose, just for story's sake, that there is something highly valuable he has left. Just because we didn't know that, doesn't make us poor. The will may be read later, in a few hours later, and it may be revealed to us, we have all that wealth. But then, as soon as that was bequeathed to us, we are in that possession of that. Now, those examples all have some limitation, which cannot come near, the example cannot come near the truth. The truth is that we are all really there is no we, there is only the self. There is only the self, and that is what we are. And what is the example given? Anma எப்போதுமே அடைந்துள்ளதே ஆனாலும் தான் மடமையால் அடையாததாய் அமரும். Mal Madiya, when that ignorance is removed, either Petra or Pol, as though it was lost, as though the 10th man was lost, as though he was not Kuntiputra, he was behaving. Now, when Krishna reveals to him, suddenly that aha moment is there. Petra or Pol, that as though it was Prapti, as though we have attained it, we get a feeling. But is it so? We have always been that, or we are ever that. And what is the example given here? It is like the Kanta Abharana. the abharanam that is there, the necklace that is there, it could refer, the abharanam could refer to any kind of ornament. But here, since it is kantabharanam, we say it is a necklace. And that necklace, keeping it there, and in our scattered mind, we run around because of being occupied with arrangements for the program. We feel we are not wearing it and we are running around in search of the necklace. Then some friend asks, why is it that you are running around? And you say the necklace has been lost. And he points it out, see, it is there in your neck. And you just touch it. And there is a feeling as though you have got. So though the self, we get a feeling, now we are getting this Purana. Now we are coming near this Purana. I have attained. I have attained. But then to tell I have attained, there are no thoughts. The I who was to attain and the process which is attainment are both thoughts. The ego which has to attain and the process which is the process of attainment are both thoughts. They will not be there in the self. So therefore, both the I and the process vanish. And that is what is to be recalled from the first verse. Ulladala, ulla unar ullado, ulla porul, ullallara, ullatte ulladal. How is that Atma there? It is sans thoughts. It is free of thoughts. It is there as consciousness existence. The ulla porul is there. Ulla porul, ullallara, ullatte ulladal, ullamenum, ulla porul, ullalevan, ullatte ullapadi, ullade ullalevan. Who is to meditate that even Lakshman Sharma says, Bhagavan has clarified, it means both the individual and the method. Is there a method? Since the Atma is existing without thoughts, it is existing without thoughts in the heart. In the heart, as the heart can be removed, it is thought free. It is indicated for turning inwards, says Kanakamal, that it is only to turn inward that heart is mentioned as a place inside you. But then in the thought-free state, where is the place? Where is the object? There is only the thought-free consciousness, there is only the Atma Swarupa. So, Ullalevan means both the method or all the sadhanas we have adopted from LKG, UKG, from various parentage, all that to whoever we have been in various roles. Evan means two. Bhagavan says one is method, one is the individual. Who is to meditate and how to meditate on that which is consciousness without thoughts. So both the fellow who meditated and the processes of meditation all vanish. Pravilapya Drishti. In that Pravilapya Drishti, all the time, all the space, all the journeys, all the tomfooleries, all the ignorances, all the actions, everything is absorbed in the Atma Swarupa. That alone is shining like the Kantabharanam, like the 10th man, which is ever present. And up to that we have come so far. Let us go to the next verse, the 44th verse, which we had briefly looked at. Is that once you are absorbed in that self, all the journeys that you have ever made and all the individuals who you feel are existing apart from you, all their journeys, they told like this, they were having this fight, all that vanishes into the Atma Swarupa. That is this verse, Anma eppodume adaindulade. That is 45th. The 44th, 45th and 46th we will try to see. 45th is Brahmatil Jeevan Brantiyal Kattai Urudan Por Karpitan Poyam Uruvatin Tattuvam Yadendru Tam Unarin Au Uruvam Vastuvagadu Madi. all these sadhanas, the removal of upadhis, removal of the panchakoshas one after another, removal of annamaya kosha, pranamaya kosha, manomaya kosha, vijnanamaya kosha, anandamaya kosha, transcending all that, net effect, what is there? Net effect is that the jiva vanishes. All the verses up to this, whatever you have done as sadhana, is for only one thing, is for removing the false jiva bhava, and that is what is summed up by the Acharya in this verse. Let us go back to the example of the ship of Theseus that we have discussed many times. That we have seen that what is this individuality? It is the identity with the component parts. It is the occupation, or it is the identifying with the component parts and saying this summation of component parts is me. And what is the sadhana that is being done so far? The consciousness does not need any identity with these component parts. The component parts of the Annamaya Kosha, component parts of the Pranamaya Kosha, the component parts of the Manomaya Kosha, the component parts of the Vijnanamaya Kosha, component parts of the various types of identities you have in the ego. All that is not required. So ultimately what all this sadhana amounts to is to inquiring into who am I and dismantling the nature of the jiva to hold on to something. As Bhagavan says in Ulladu Narpadu, Urupatri Undam, Urupatri Nirkum, Urupatri Undumida Hongum, Uruvittu Urupatrum, Tedinal Otam Pidikkum, Uruvatra Peyahande Or. What is the nature of the jiva? The jiva feels there is substantial value only in being identified with this Annamaya Kosha. How to keep the Annamaya Kosha in the best of the health? Let us keep continuous glucose monitoring. Let us have some transmitter inside the skin so that there is absolute follow-up of all these spikes and lowering of the sugar levels. Now, to what effect? The anxiety levels go up. The anxieties go up, and that pressure, the anxiety pressure, once again is added to the already existing problems of the body. Therefore, the removal of the identity with those is the only sadhana that is being given to the jiva. What was that example that we had in the boat of Theseus is that boat was made of some component boats. We had taken the number 200, and that actually the event was Theseus was a great hero who had gone. We understand what is real hero. Real hero is one who dismantles the ego and abides in the self, the hera. But then to come to that, we have to learn about ourselves, that we can overcome limitations and evil. We have to participate in many sadhanas, gain identity, then inquire about that identity, the seeming journey of the hero. But as part of that journey, he goes to some other island near the mainland, some distance, and kills a creature which is giving trouble to the mainland people. And that journey is celebrated by the Greeks. For 1,000 years, that boat is there in the yard. And every year on that particular day, they will take to that island, have some celebrations and come. The question is, the 200 boats of which the boat is made have all been replaced in the 1,000 years. Is it still the boat of Theseus? The same question we saw is there in the sword of the Zen, the sword of the samurai master. It had three components: the blade, the handle, and the sheath. The blade was changed by the grandfather. The handle was changed by the son. The sheath was changed by the grandson, let us say. Now, is the new sword with the grandson, is it the same samurai sword? If the consciousness says it is the same, it is the same. If the consciousness says it is not, it is not. Undendral adu undu, illai endral adu illai, says Kannadasan. That is, the consciousness has this ability to identify with the added up component parts and says, this is what I am, or this is what God is. Or the consciousness has the ability to say, no, this cannot be me, or this sum total cannot be God. If you say the sum total of the world, the sum total of all knowledge is the body of God, then it is there. But then if you say he is the consciousness which does not need the support of the sum total of the cosmos or the knowledge in cosmos, then God is that free spirit. That means the spirit, the consciousness has this freedom either to identify and suffer or not to identify and be free. And that is what is given as the root sadhana. Brahmatil Jeevan Brantiyal Kattai Purudan Pol. In the darkness, when there is a stone which is of 5 feet 8 inches or 6 feet high, or a post which has been kept there, let us say some bar bending is being done for the construction of a home, and they have kept a plank and on a pole, and when you are coming back home in the evening, it appears as though somebody is standing in front of your house, because that wooden plank which has been put on earth, it appears like a man. And only when you come near and shine some light on it, you find that no, it was never a man, it was only a wooden post. Like that, the being Theseus boat or not never was in the planks. It was in the consciousness, feeling value in the composition or feeling free. That Theseus boat is there, that Nandakumar is there, or Nandakumar is free. The consciousness, if it feels this body, the set of knowledge that I have, the set of identities I have, that is me, then the consciousness binds itself. Bhagavan says the body never says I. The set of thoughts never says I. It is I, because of ignorance, not knowing who I am, I go and identify with I am so and so. And that is Kattai Purudan. There is no reality there. This body is never Nandakumar. Only I rise and identify, and I have the necessity to take special care of this. That's why Bhagavan would say in the kitchen, in the hall, let whatever food is available to everybody, that alone be served to me, to this body. Even one nartanga, if somebody puts more, Bhagavan will take him to task, because let the body be eligible for the food which Ishvara has arranged. Somebody would ask Bhagavan, it is Professor Sayed, he would ask Bhagavan, you are saying that we can have Icha, but sadhana should be there. But I have Icha for food 4 times a day. I have food 4 times a day. Will it come in the way of my sadhana? Bhagavan says, eating 4 times a day is not a problem. But you should not say, this is what I should have. That I should not have in my plate. That should not have come today. And that specific choice and seeking is what is making that as a bondage, Bhagavan would say. But then the consciousness sees, no, that unless that particular food is there, I don't feel that I have maintained the discipline or the care that I am giving to this body. I don't take what food is available or what food is available for all in the team, which is a reasonable restriction. That also I don't want to take, because there are so many particularities that we like, and that leads to the Jiva Bhava. Brahmatil Jeevan Brantiyal Kattai Purudan Pol Karpitan Poyam Uruvatil Tattvam Yadendra Tanunarin. So all these 44 verses, what it effectively comes to, you inquire into who you are. Uruvatil Tattvam Yadendra Tanunarin. What is the truth behind me? I know that I exist, but to say that I exist as the body, I have to come to the waking state and identify with this, the body is not available in dream or in deep sleep. But I am ever present in all the three states. So let me hold or inquire into who am I. If you find out that my truth is only the self, avuruvam vastuvahad radi. The theseus board is never the truth. The consciousness, which can either say this is theseus board, or it can make a small Arshana mountain molehill and say this is the Brahmanda Nayaka Ganapati. Brahmanda Nayaka Ganapati is where the consciousness can say he is now in this form. So that means, see where he really is. Where is the Brahmanda Nayaka Ganapati? He is in that consciousness which is free to see the Brahmanda Nayaka there or not see, or say that no, God doesn't exist. To say that God doesn't exist, he has to use God's very existence to claim, but then that ignorance also will eventually be dissolved in the self. Because what is really true? Always the Brahman alone is the truth. Brahmatil Jeevan Brahmtiya Kattai Purudan Pol Karpitan is only superimposed. So when we inquire in that silence, what Bhagavan says? There are no thoughts. What is the implication of not having any thoughts? The implication of not having any thoughts is that the feeling that I was such a fool before. Then so and so helped me. And so helped me right through. And because of their help, I joined this meditation course. And from meditation course, I went to observation of thoughts. And from observation of thoughts, the who am I came. And after who am I came, I did self-enquiry. And then I have identified with this Purana. Where is the thought for all this in this Purana? It's all washed out. Absolutely washed clean. In that Purana, there is no time, there is no place, there are no individuals, there is no individuality apart, no one bound, no one seeking liberation. When there is no one bound, how can you say that you were in bondage and you did all this sadhana? There is nobody who is bound, nobody seeking liberation. The truth is ajata, it is unbound, it is ever present. It is not associated with any component parts assembled together. It is not that board put together. There is this discussion in Buddha's story about identity and non-identity. There is this person who comes and say, now, what is the truth behind identifying with something and non-identifying with something? And Buddha says, you are really free to do either. How? See, there is a set of lamps in the building that is in front of them, obviously owned by a very rich king. In that mansion, in the various floors, there are oil lamps. In those days, there are wicks, and it is the duty of the security guards, as soon as they come to job, they have to see that the oil is replenished, the wicks are properly arranged, and sometimes some of the lamps would have gone out, they will have to relight it. And Buddha is showing to that person, Puttadanta or somebody, he is showing, see those lamps are there. He said, the same light, every moment by moment, is the light of each lamp, the same light, every moment by moment. And Puttadanta says, I can't tell you, please tell. And Buddha says, if you consider the component parts, then every moment new atoms of oil are rising up to be burnt. So new atoms of oil are rising up to be burnt. How can that identity be the same? Therefore, the fire is having no continuity of identity every moment by moment. However, if you are taking the light alone as the lamp, leave the component parts, Leave all the component parts. You are taking light alone as the lamp. Then how does it matter that it was switched off sometime? Lamp means light. Therefore, even if it was switched off, it was relit. As soon as it is relit, it is the lamp. It is lamp. What is light in one lamp or another lamp? How does it matter? Same consciousness here, there, everywhere. There also, if you want to identify everything as consciousness and transcend. If you want to not identify, don't identify even the previous and the next. Go in the gap between the two. If you want to identify with everything and transcend the whole Brahmanda. If you want to not identify, then do not identify even with the next or the previous. Be that light which doesn't need any support. Either way, you will have to transcend everything, transcend the relative to be the absolute light, he will say. But then, what is the Jnana Marga that we are adopting? The Jnana Marga we are adopting is the Neti Marga, that the consciousness doesn't need the support of any of those non-self upadhis. Therefore, we are treading the path of non-identity to come to fullness of the iti. And it is not even coming to the fullness. All partial existence is no existence. The fullness only really exists. And once that reveals itself like the Suryodaya, I can't even say, then everything is you. There is no then, there is no previously. It cannot be expressed. You have the only way, the words cannot enter there because words are formed by Chit Jada Granthi. The Anubhava is, the self alone is, there is no Jiva there. There is no ghost hiding in the post. All these component parts can be let go of, and the self-luminous self alone is. When that alone is, what else can you or me, the so-called you and so-called me, what can we be? Therefore, Tattvamasi applies to the so-called each one of us. And there is no eventually that we are always the 10th person. We are always Vishnu. Whether we know it or not, there is only Vishnu, there is only Shiva, there is only Ramana, there is only the self. And that is it. Let's sit in Atmaucharam for the next 6 minutes or so. Then we can listen to Akka at 8 o'clock. Hey, Utima, you can set the time for us. Thank you. Namo Ramana.
Namo Ramana. Prostrations to Ramana, shining as the self. We say shining as the self in all beings. Even to say prostrations and to see all beings, that would be, Nandakumar ji just told us while talking about the final verse, even those words they lose themselves or they get dissolved in the self, in self-awareness, in the shining of the self. But if we look back to what Nandakumar ji started with in the revision section today, shining as the self in all beings, when we say Bhagavan is shining as the self in all beings, Bhagavan actually says all beings are shining in the self, or all beings are shining as the self. There is nothing apart from the self. To see everything as consciousness. Bhagavan has said in Ekanma Panchakam, Tannul Tanu Irukka. The images are in the light. In a cinema, when we watch a movie, all the images are in the light. It is not that the light is in the images, but we see light in the images. We see consciousness in manifestation, in different manifestations. But even that is one step forward, as Bhagavan says in Upadeshasaram, Ashtamurti Bhrit Deva Pujanam, to see that it is consciousness that shines in all beings. It is the light which shines in all images. Even that recognition is one step forward. Then what happens? Gradually we recognize, no. It is not light in all beings. It is all beings in the light. All images are expressions of the light. That is the next point to which we get to. That is, the delusion gets destroyed as we start trying to see the link of consciousness to everything, how consciousness alone is shining in everything. Then gradually that everything drops away. The jnana begins to cut away our ignorance, like the fire destroys all the objects that are offered as oblation into the homa. So everything is offered into this. Oh, this image is also consciousness. This experience is consciousness. That which is seen is consciousness. That which is heard, as Nandakumar said, all the koshas, everything is only consciousness. Is everything only consciousness? Because everything is experienced only in the consciousness. There may be one object, but two people do not see the same object. Although there is one object, the objects are seen. That same object is seen differently by two people. So it is consciousness that sees. There is scientific experiment which Nandakumar ji has shared with us, how seeing a wave changes the very pattern of the wave. The object is changed by the observer. Science is now beginning to see that. I have heard there is a movie, probably a Japanese movie, which is a narration of a murder by 6 or 7 eyewitnesses. And each story is different. So each time it is played based on the eyewitnesses' narration. So each is different. There are 6 or 7 actually murders which have happened. There are 6 or 7 stories which have happened. So there is a different story, and for each one of us, it's a different story. The world is not the same for all of us. Though we may imagine there is the same world, can the world be the same for the ant and for us? Is the world currently the same for the ant? If an ant comes on my table, is that the world that is being experienced by the ant the same as the world which I am experiencing? Not at all. For me, the ant has come on my table. But for the ant, there is no awareness of Sharada or Sharada's table or anything. It is going in search of its own food or its own tasks, and it is just moving around in space. It has no consciousness of Sharada at all. So there are different worlds for the different jivas, if we see different jivas. So where is the world actually? It is in consciousness. And this experience we have very clearly in our dream. So we are able to see that. And as we begin to see, the light of consciousness begins to enter our lives. As it enters, everything becomes more and more beautiful. Even though we are still in duality, I often say that when we see the sun behind a cloud, it is said that we can see the silver lining, because what happens is when we see a sun behind a cloud, the central part of the cloud becomes dark and the edges of that cloud become resplendent. So what happens actually, that when we see the sun behind a cloud in this way, we don't see that it is a cloud, we don't see that it is dark. What we become aware of is the sun. Oh, the sun is behind that cloud. The sun is behind that cloud. So the attention shifts from the cloud to the sun, to the light. That is the verse which says how even in the dawn, even in the beginning of that light. So that's why in the sadhana part also life becomes so resplendent, so beautiful, because of the light of the self that begins to shine. And then ultimately we recognize that there is no such thing as a dawning of light at all. It is always there. It is not something which has come anew. I said last time that G. Kameshwar has shared an example of Swami Akhandananda Saraswati. He says that he had a boyhood friend, or rather a boyhood friend whom he had met only once in some village or a town which was quite distant from his place. That is actually his friend's younger brother, much younger to him. But he happened to develop a friendship with him, and they maintained the friendship in those days through regular correspondence. Then many years passed, they never met each other, and Swamiji wanted to go and meet this person, this young man, to find out whether he was would make a suitable groom for a girl in his family, in his own family. He went to see this friend, but he didn't introduce himself. He went there and he spoke to him. The friend received him with a lot of respect. In those days, maybe newcomers were not seen with an eye of suspicion. And he must have, maybe, I do not know at that time itself whether he was a sannyasi, but it could be seen that he was a spiritual person, and this young man invited him, gave him due respect, gave him food, was discussing all spiritual matters with him, but asked him, "Who are you, sir? Who are you?" Now this Swami Akhandananda Saraswati did not reveal who he was, because he wanted to see this person in his colors without revealing who he was. And then finally, before he left, that young man again asked him, "Who are you, sir? Who are you?" And then he said, "I am so and so." Immediately, that man had tears in his eyes, and he fell at his feet and he embraced him also and said, "Oh, so much of joy that I am having on seeing you, because I did not recognize you earlier. I missed having all this joy. So it appears as if we have missed it, and there appears to be a recognition. And he says, Swamiji says, see, the samparka is always there. We were together. We were speaking with each other. We ate together. We did everything together. For 2 to 3 hours, we were together. Yet, the recognition was not there. So, the self is always with us, or it is our true nature. We are in the self alone. And the self alone is, however, until we recognize it, that joy is missing. We need to recognize it, the sadhana of dropping the ego, which is the only obstruction. Bhagavan says only the rising of the I thought is the obstruction. Bhagavan also has said you can put a small finger, if you bring your little finger also very close to your eye, to the eyeball, he says it can actually obstruct the vision of the entire world. Just a little finger. World is so large, but a little finger can obstruct the vision of the entire world. We see when we are doing Girivalam, there is a small little hillock actually, which comes in front of Arunachala at one point and hides the view of the entire huge hill. That mountain, that magnificent mountain is hidden by this small little hillock which comes in front. I think that at that time, Vishwanatha Swami, while doing Valam, he said that there are 2-3 explanations for this hillock. One explanation is that it is like the ego, which is obstructing the vision of the self. Though the hill is so close to us, and we would have seen it just before that. But it gets hidden by the rise or the rise in this case in the movement of the hillock. As we are moving, that little hillock comes in front and it hides the vision. So that in the same way, the rising of the ego hides our true experience of the self. So all that has to be done is to get rid of this illusion that there is a man in a lamp, in a post. There is a man standing in a post. So the man is not there. Similarly, like we say, the getting rid of the illusion that there is a snake in a rope. So that is the illusion has to be dropped. And once it is dropped, then the great load is off. It is only the bliss which is there, the natural bliss is there. Even when small, Bhagavan says, to the jnani, sometimes he says to the jnani, when the body is like a porter carrying a load on his head. Why? There is no, of course, thought for the jnani. But this example is given only to tell us, why do you carry this load upon yourself? Bhagavan says in Padigam, he says, O Arunachala, I have had enough paramanir pirindu ivulaginai talayil patri yan petrathu podum. In a sense, I often think that it's like the ego rising from the heart, moving away, getting separated and getting into the head, thinking, carrying the whole world on this head. And I say, okay, enough of carrying this load upon my head. Paramanir pirindu ivulaginai talayil patriyan petrudu podum. Paramanam Arunachala ena ini un padatti nindru, from your state, your feet, which is your state. Odupuraparel, don't separate me from you. Don't send me out in the form of thoughts. Allow me to get absorbed back into the source, which you are, and be enveloped by the truth. That is anyhow the purpose of Bhagavan, to embrace us in that truth. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya.